Yeah.
Yeah, of a big Ultraman out there.
I mean, some people are like really worried about like cell phone towers, thinking they cause like radiation or something poisoning. This is not true.
Yeah, people are worried about 5G, right?
Don't worry about it.
No, not at all.
I mean, no. Like, look at it this way. Like, if I had cell phones, if I had a helmet of cell phones
Right?
strapped around around my head and around my nuts, I would not
You're
worry.
good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I met a dude.
To acknowledge, let alone to respond to comments concerning the impact of RF radiation on the environment. Environmental effects have never been considered by the FCC in deciding what the standards ought to be. So as a consequence of that ruling, we're now in a situation where we have been, as Senator Blumenthal noted years ago, flying blind. There has been no one paying attention to the need to protect wildlife, plants, or animals, nor frankly for the rest of us. And now we've provided additional evidence to them in the past year. Environmental Health Trust actually submitted work done by Albert Manville, Blake Levitt, Henry Lai, and others. So the FCC currently has that, which they have also not acknowledged, nor is there any indication that they are taking seriously what this court ruling said to them in 2021. Thanks to the efforts of all of you on this call today, could not find the evidence. And the most important thing it said to be unfolding. Then related devices, which were to revise the FCC. We filed, issued a ruling. The Circuit Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia issued a ruling based on a lawsuit that we filed in 2020. Our lawsuit challenged the FCC when it said, trust us, there's no need to revise any of the standards that we've had for cell phones or related devices, which were set in 1996. The same limits that were set then should apply now to all of this technology that is going to be unfolding. And what the court did is it actually looked at the evidence. And the most important thing it said is that it could not find any indication that the FCC had actually read the substantial record of scientific evidence, the evidence on long-term exposure, the vulnerability of children. And the 2021 decision specifically said that the FCC had completely failed even to acknowledge, let alone to respond to comments concerning the impact of RF radiation on the environment. Environmental effects have never been considered by the FCC in deciding what the
governments for that purpose. Most American men never had more than 1 year of physics in school and simply do not have the understanding, but they have strong opinions without ever having understood physics. They have strong opinions about it that this possibly cannot be true, because if it would be true and dangerous, the government would have done something. Well, you make your own opinion after watching this film. So wireless permanently perspective, it's a high frequency. One of the things, if you want, is the increased exposure to man-made electromagnetic fields, largely in the high frequency range. There's some exceptions that have also increased, but largely it parallels the exponential increase in chronic neurological illness, with the low-grade depression, the insomnia, the muscle aches and pains, and the fatigue, and the strange neurological symptoms with tingling, numbness, vibration in the body. That increases exponentially. The number of children to be diagnosed autistic doubles every 5 years now. There's no more an issue, well, are we overdiagnosing it? No, it doubles every 5 years. The only thing that parallels that increase is the increased exposure to man-made electromagnetic fields, largely in the high frequency range. There's some exceptions that have also increased, but largely is the high frequency range from cell phone radiation, from the Tetra network that the police and other systems are using. The smart meters are the worst invention that we followed in the last 2 years. There's absolutely devastating consequences that I will share with you. The only development that parallels the exponential increase that we observe in neurological disease is the export
University of
the manufacturing
43 proteins and radiation, 6,000 research
fits from an environmental perspective and from a epidemiological perspective is that this is the electromagnetic waves that are penetrating our body that are responsible for this. And fortunately enough, we have good science now.
Over the past 80 years, more than 6,000 research studies have been published on the biological effects of electromagnetic radiation. The majority of these studies have shown biological damage being done. Of the many more recent advances in research, one notable study was published earlier this year by the University of Athens. The results over an 8-month period showed 143 proteins in the mammalian brain were altered after exposure to either a mobile phone or a DECT phone base, including proteins which have already been linked to Alzheimer's, glioblastoma, stress, and metabolism. Lead author Adamantia Fragipoulou states, "This study is anticipated to throw light in the understanding of health effects like headaches, dizziness, sleep disorders, memory disorders, brain tumors, all of them related to the function of the altered brain proteins."
This permanently destroys and alters the manufacturing of these proteins, meaning it completely changes the human organism permanently. The DNA inside the cell is a booklet, an instruction.
And that safety factor, they call it, of 50, that's not based on any relative risk. It's an arbitrary number.
So at some point, someone is going to have their allowable limits off, and you described the study with the rats, and so you said that these rats were essentially starved, and then they were already trained to be to access food through pressing a lever, and they kept them, I guess, in some sort of container with the lever, and as they sat there, they increased the radiation in that vessel until the rat was physically unable to press the lever. Is that correct?
You sound as incredulous as I felt the first time I saw it. And that's where I mentioned I had to go through it multiple times before it sunk in. What you just described is perfect. That's what happened. It's kind of like putting them in a microwave oven and continually increasing the power until finally they couldn't function. So yes, that's exactly what they did.
I have to add, they measured their temperature with a rectal probe.
Right.
Okay. So the FCC's limit is basically a limit in a rat that once the rat's body was no longer able to function well enough, even while it was starving, to press a lever, that is the legal limit of exposure that the FCC allows.
Well, they took that number and then divided it by 50. Where they got the number of 50 from, I have no idea. But they took that exposure where the monkeys got burns on their faces from the radio frequencies, and then they divided it by 50, and they said, well, that's fine for the population in general for 24/7 exposure.
With no scientific study on what that 50% level was over time or anything like that.
What you say is absolutely correct. So no, there was no rationale such as if we divide by 50, we'll get a relative risk of such and such. No, they didn't do that. They came up with the number of 50 and said that'll work. And then it was only a factor of 10 for worker.
Okay. So thank you for that.